Flavius Belisarius, born around 505 AD in Germania, modern-day Bulgaria, had a rather obscure early life, as records of his birth and childhood are limited. His birthplace, a frontier region of the Eastern Roman Empire, was an area prone to conflict and instability due to its proximity to barbarian territories. Growing up in this environment likely shaped his future military mindset and resilience. Although specific details of his family background are scarce, Belisarius is believed to have come from a relatively humble background, possibly of Thracian or Illyrian descent. There is no evidence to suggest that he belonged to the aristocracy, making his rise to one of Byzantium's greatest generals all the more impressive. As a young boy, Belisarius might have witnessed the constant threat of invasions from the Huns, Goths, and other tribes, which would later inform his military strategies. During his childhood years, the Eastern Roman Empire, under the rule of Emperor Anastasius I and later Justin I, was experiencing a period of relative peace and stability, though threats from external forces remained ever present. These formative years likely imbued him with a strong sense of loyalty to the empire and an understanding of the importance of military strength in defending its borders. Flavius Belisarius would have been in his early teens and 20s. While there is little direct documentation about this period of his life, it is likely that he entered military service during these years, as his talents as a soldier were evident early on. This time in the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, was marked by a focus on internal stability and defense against external threats, especially from the Persians and barbarian groups, which would shape the future of Belisarius's career. During this period, the Eastern Roman Empire was ruled by Emperor Justinian I, r. 518–527, whose reign was characterized by efforts to maintain stability within the empire and manage relationships with both the Western Roman Empire and neighboring powers like the Sassanid Empire. It is likely that Belisarius began his military career as part of the Imperial Guard or in a local frontier force, learning the skills of leadership and strategy that would later define his career. The military environment Belisarius entered was one in which the Roman legions had begun to decline in quality, and new methods of warfare, particularly cavalry tactics, were increasingly important. It is believed that during these years, Belisarius was trained in these evolving strategies, especially in the use of heavy cavalry, which would become a hallmark of his later military campaigns. By 525, Belisarius had likely risen through the ranks, showing promise as a young officer. His early exposure to frontier conflicts and the shifting dynamics of Byzantine military strategy prepared him for his rapid ascent under Emperor Justinian I, who would become emperor in 527. Flavius Belisarius' career began to rise dramatically, coinciding with the ascension of Emperor Justinian I in 527. In 527, Emperor Justin I died and his nephew Justinian I took the throne. Justinian, eager to restore the former glory of the Roman Empire, saw great potential in Belisarius. Belisarius was appointed commander of the Byzantine forces in the east, tasked with defending the empire's eastern frontier against the Sassanid Persians, who were a constant threat. In 530, Belisarius gained recognition for his leadership at the Battle of Dara, one of the earliest and most significant battles of his career. The battle took place near the fortress of Dara, modern-day Turkey, where the Byzantines faced a much larger Persian army. Despite being outnumbered, Belisarius's tactical brilliance, including the use of cavalry and well-coordinated infantry maneuvers, led to a decisive Byzantine victory. This victory not only solidified his reputation as a formidable general, but also bolstered the morale of the Byzantine army. However, Belisarius faced a setback the following year in 531 at the Battle of Callinicum, where the Byzantines were defeated by the Persians. Despite the loss, Justinian continued to trust in Belisarius's abilities, recognizing the broader strategic challenges and his overall skill as a commander. During this time, Belisarius was also involved in supporting Justinian's domestic agenda. In 532, when the Nika riots broke out in Constantinople, Belisarius played a crucial role in quelling the uprising. The riots threatened Justinian's rule, but Belisarius, along with other commanders, led a brutal crackdown on the rioters, reportedly killing over 30,000 people in the Hippodrome. His loyalty and effectiveness in restoring order further cemented his position as one of Justinian's most trusted generals. After stabilizing internal affairs, Justinian turned his attention to reclaiming former Roman territories, starting with North Africa, where the Vandal kingdom had taken control. In 533, Belisarius was appointed to lead the Vandalic War, tasked with reconquering this territory for the Byzantine Empire. In September 533, Belisarius launched a highly successful campaign against the Vandals, leading a relatively small but highly disciplined force. He scored a major victory at the Battle of Ad Decimum, just outside Carthage, and later at the Battle of Tricomarum in December. These victories led to the fall of the Vandal kingdom, and by 534 Belisarius had successfully captured Carthage, restoring the province of Africa to Byzantine control. The Vandal king Gelimer was captured, and Belisarius returned to Constantinople as a hero, celebrating a triumph. By 535, Belisarius had become one of the most celebrated generals in the Byzantine Empire, known for his strategic brilliance, loyalty to Justinian, and ability to achieve victories against considerable odds. His successes in the Vandalic War marked the beginning of Justinian's ambitious reconquests of former Roman territories, with Belisarius at the forefront of these campaigns. Flavius Belisarius solidified his legacy as one of the greatest military commanders of the Byzantine Empire, largely through his campaigns in Italy and North Africa, as well as his loyalty to Emperor Justinian I during turbulent times. After his triumph in North Africa, Emperor Justinian turned his sights on the reconquest of Italy, which had fallen under the rule of the Ostrogoths. In 535, Belisarius was dispatched to lead the Gothic War, aiming to reclaim the heart of the former Western Roman Empire. Belisarius's campaign began in Sicily in 535, where he swiftly captured the island, gaining an initial foothold in the region. The following year, he advanced into mainland Italy, taking the important city of Naples after a siege. His forces then moved northward toward Rome, where, in December 536, Belisarius entered the city without major resistance, as the Ostrogothic king Theodahad fled. This marked a significant moment in Byzantine history, as Rome, though diminished in importance, was once again under Roman Byzantine control. However, Belisarius faced a massive Ostrogothic counterattack led by the new king Victories, who laid siege to Rome in early 537. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Belisarius successfully defended the city during the siege of Rome, 537 to 538. Using brilliant defensive tactics and cavalry raids, he held off the Gothic forces for over a year until reinforcements arrived, forcing the Ostrogoths to lift the siege. Belisarius then went on the offensive, capturing key cities, including Ravenna, the Ostrogothic capital, in 540. Victories was captured, and Italy seemed to be firmly back in Byzantine hands. However, internal Byzantine politics and suspicion from Justinian slowed down Belisarius's progress. Justinian, ever wary of his generals gaining too much power, recalled Belisarius to Constantinople in 540. While Belisarius had been campaigning in Italy, the Byzantine Empire's eastern frontier had again come under threat from the Sassanid Empire, led by King Khosrow I. In 540, Khosrow launched a major invasion, capturing the key city of Antioch and ravaging parts of Syria. Belisarius, once back in Constantinople, was sent east in 541 to confront the Persians. However, this campaign was less successful compared to his earlier ones. Belisarius found it difficult to stop Khosrow's advances, mainly due to insufficient resources, internal corruption, and the logistical challenges of fighting a defensive war on the eastern frontier. Despite these difficulties, Belisarius managed to defend the empire effectively enough to prevent major territorial losses. At this time, Belisarius also faced personal and political challenges. His wife, Antonina, who had a close relationship with Empress Theodora, was involved in court intrigues that caused friction between Belisarius and the Byzantine elite. Additionally, Justinian's growing suspicion of Belisarius's power and popularity meant that the emperor did not fully trust his general, despite his repeated successes on the battlefield. The Ostrogoths in Italy, seeing an opportunity after Belisarius's departure, rallied under a new king, Totila, and began to retake much of the territory Belisarius had captured. Totila's resurgence forced Justinian to send Belisarius back to Italy in 544 to stabilize the situation. By the time Belisarius returned, the Byzantine position in Italy had deteriorated significantly. Totila had recaptured much of central and southern Italy, and Belisarius was once again operating with limited resources. Despite his military genius, Belisarius found it difficult to reverse the Gothic gains. Justinian's reluctance to provide adequate support further hampered his efforts, and by 545, Belisarius had made little progress in fully regaining control of Italy. Despite these challenges, Belisarius's loyalty to Justinian never wavered. He continued to fight on behalf of the emperor, even though his resources were stretched thin and political intrigues at the Byzantine court limited his freedom of action. By 545, Flavius Belisarius was still one of the most prominent figures in the Byzantine military, renowned for his earlier successes, but increasingly hampered by the Byzantine court's politics and Justinian's distrust. His loyalty and skill, especially in defending the empire against overwhelming odds, earned him immense respect among his troops and historians alike. Flavius Belisarius continued his military career, though it was a period marked by frustrations, shifting fortunes, and eventually, the decline of his active role in the Byzantine Empire. Despite these challenges, he remained one of Emperor Justinian's most loyal generals. When Belisarius returned to Italy in 544 to combat the Ostrogothic resurgence under King Totila, he faced a deeply challenging situation. The Byzantine forces had been weakened, and Totila had successfully recaptured much of the territory, including key cities like Naples and Rome. Justinian, continuing his pattern of providing Belisarius with insufficient resources, left him with limited manpower and supplies. During these years, Belisarius struggled to regain control over Italy. In 546, Totila's forces managed to sack Rome, although Belisarius eventually retook the city soon after. However, Totila continued his guerrilla-style warfare, avoiding major confrontations and frustrating Belisarius's efforts to win a decisive victory. This stalemate persisted, and Belisarius's lack of resources became a significant obstacle in his attempts to reverse the Gothic gains. By 549, he was recalled to Constantinople, having made little headway against Attila's persistent campaign. Despite his inability to fully reclaim Italy, Belisarius's reputation remained intact. He had done the best he could with the limited resources at his disposal, and his defensive strategies and tactical brilliance were still highly respected. After his recall from Italy, Belisarius spent several years in relative retirement, out of the limelight of imperial campaigns. During this period, Emperor Justinian shifted his focus away from Italy and began preparing new strategies for the empire. However, in 551, Justinian faced a new threat much closer to the capital when Huns and Slavic tribes began raiding the northern provinces of the Byzantine Empire. Once again, Justinian turned to his most trusted general. Belisarius, now older and semi-retired, was recalled to defend the empire's borders. In this brief return to military service, Belisarius effectively repelled these incursions, using his seasoned knowledge of defensive warfare to protect the empire from these raids. Belisarius's active military role largely concluded by the mid-550s. The Gothic War in Italy, which Belisarius had helped start in 535, was finally brought to a close by another general, Narses, who led a large army into Italy in 552 and decisively defeated Totila at the Battle of Taginae. While Narses would go on to complete the reconquest of Italy, much of the groundwork had been laid by Belisarius's earlier efforts. In 554, Justinian issued the Pragmatic Sanction, officially reincorporating Italy into the Byzantine Empire. Though Belisarius was not directly involved in this final victory, his earlier campaigns, especially his defense of Rome, played a crucial role in Justinian's ultimate success in reclaiming the former Western Roman territories. In his final years, Belisarius enjoyed the honor and respect he had earned throughout his long career. However, his relationship with Justinian remained complicated, as the emperor's suspicion of Belisarius's popularity and power never entirely faded. In 562, Belisarius briefly faced charges of corruption in what some historians believe was a political move to discredit him, but he was quickly exonerated and pardoned by Justinian. Belisarius's retirement was marked by relative obscurity, despite his contributions to the empire's military successes. He died in either 565 or shortly before, just a few months before Emperor Justinian. By 555, Flavius Belisarius had already secured his place as one of the greatest generals of the Byzantine Empire. His campaigns, particularly the defense of Italy and his victories in North Africa, had shaped the empire's fortunes during Justinian's reign. Though often under-resourced and subjected to the whims of imperial politics, Belisarius remained a loyal servant to Justinian, defending the empire's borders and helping to fulfill the emperor's vision of restoring Roman glory. His legacy is that of a brilliant, adaptable, and loyal general, admired for his tactical genius and integrity, though he never sought political power for himself. Belisarius's name would endure through history as a symbol of military excellence and personal loyalty to the Byzantine state. The final decade of Flavius Belisarius's life, his role in the Byzantine Empire was largely symbolic, as he lived in semi-retirement. During these years, he remained loyal to Emperor Justinian I, but his involvement in active military campaigns had significantly diminished. The period marked the closing chapter of one of Byzantium's most celebrated military careers. By 555, Belisarius had largely retired from active service. The Byzantine Empire had achieved several of its major goals under Justinian, including the reconquest of North Africa and Italy, as well as stabilization on the Eastern Front with Persia. The Gothic War in Italy, which had consumed much of Belisarius's career, was brought to a definitive end by Narses in 552. Though Belisarius had not been present for the final victory, his earlier efforts in the campaign had laid the groundwork for Narses's success. During his retirement, Belisarius continued to live in Constantinople. Despite his earlier military brilliance, the court's politics and Justinian's ongoing suspicion of him meant that Belisarius remained somewhat sidelined. Justinian, although he trusted Belisarius as a general, had always harbored concerns about the general's immense popularity among the troops and people, fearing it could be a threat to imperial authority. As a result, Belisarius was never granted significant political power or the ability to influence court decisions during his retirement. One of the most dramatic episodes in the final years of Belisarius's life occurred in 562, when he was suddenly accused of corruption and involvement in a conspiracy against Emperor Justinian. The details of the accusations remain unclear, and some historians speculate that it was a politically motivated move by his enemies at court, who sought to diminish his reputation and influence. Belisarius was briefly imprisoned and stripped of his titles and wealth. However, in early 563, the charges were dropped, and he was restored to favor by Justinian. The emperor granted him a full pardon, possibly realizing that Belisarius was innocent, or that the accusations were the result of court intrigues. Despite this humiliating experience, Belisarius remained loyal to the emperor until his death, and he did not attempt any form of retaliation. After being exonerated, Belisarius lived out his remaining years in relative obscurity. His earlier military glories were still remembered by the people of Constantinople and his soldiers, but his public life was largely over. During these final years, the Byzantine Empire continued to face challenges, including tensions on the eastern borders with Persia and unrest in the Balkans, but Belisarius was no longer directly involved in these matters. In 565, both Flavius Belisarius and Emperor Justinian died, marking the end of an era in Byzantine history. Belisarius passed away in his late 50s or early 60s, just a few months before Justinian, leaving behind a legacy as one of Byzantium's greatest generals. His death symbolized the conclusion of Justinian's ambitious plans for reconquering the western provinces of the Roman Empire. By the time of his death in 565, Belisarius had already secured his place in history as one of the most loyal and capable military leaders of the Byzantine Empire. His name was synonymous with tactical brilliance, and he was remembered for his triumphs in North Africa, Italy, and his defense of the empire against the Persians. His unwavering loyalty to Justinian, even when faced with accusations and political manipulation, added to his reputation as a figure of honor and duty. In the centuries that followed, Belisarius became a legendary figure, often idealized as a model of loyalty and humility, particularly in the later Byzantine tradition. He is remembered not only for his military genius, but also for his character, which remained unshaken by the intrigues of the imperial court. Flavius Belisarius died in 565, just a few months before Emperor Justinian I, marking the end of one of the greatest military careers in Byzantine history. By the time of his death, Belisarius had largely retreated from public life, having spent his final years in relative obscurity after a long period of military service and loyalty to the emperor. Belisarius was believed to be in his late 50s or early 60s when he passed away. While there is little detailed information about the exact circumstances of his death, it is commonly understood that he died of natural causes. By the time of his death, Belisarius had been fully restored to favor by Justinian, following the brief period in 562 when he had faced accusations of corruption and was temporarily disgraced. Though these charges were soon dropped and Belisarius was pardoned, the episode marked the end of his active role in the empire's military and political affairs. He was allowed to live out his remaining years in peace, having been exonerated and likely spending his final days in his estate in Constantinople. A popular legend, which emerged in later centuries, suggests that Belisarius was blinded by Justinian and forced to beg for alms in the streets of Constantinople. The image of the once great general reduced to such a pitiable state was meant to symbolize the ingratitude of rulers toward their most loyal servants. However, this story is almost certainly a myth. Contemporary historical sources do not support the idea that Belisarius was blinded or that he died in disgrace. Instead, it seems to be a later invention, possibly meant to reflect the common theme of the fall from power of great men in ancient times. When Belisarius died in 565, his death did not spark major political upheaval, as he had been out of the public eye for some time. However, his passing, so close to Justinian's own death, symbolized the end of a significant era in Byzantine history. Under Justinian, Belisarius had played a key role in the emperor's ambitious project to reconquer the former territories of the Western Roman Empire, including North Africa and Italy. While the long-term success of these reconquests was limited, Belisarius's victories, particularly in North Africa and his defense of Rome, were celebrated and remembered for generations. Though the general did not seek political power or the imperial throne, his loyalty and achievements left a lasting mark on Byzantine military history. He was one of the few commanders who enjoyed the trust of Justinian, despite the emperor's notorious suspicion of powerful figures. Belisarius's death was a quiet end to a remarkable career. Having served as Justinian's most trusted and capable general, he spent his last years out of the spotlight. Yet his legacy as one of the greatest military leaders of the Byzantine Empire was already firmly established. His campaigns in Italy, North Africa, and against the Persians had helped shape the course of Justinian's reign and earned him a lasting place in history as a symbol of loyalty, brilliance, and duty. Flavius Belisarius remains an important historical figure today, primarily for his military genius, loyalty, and the way his life reflects broader themes in history, politics, and leadership. His legacy transcends Byzantine history, influencing modern views on warfare, statecraft, and personal integrity. Here are some reasons why Belisarius is still relevant and significant today. Belisarius is widely regarded as one of history's greatest military commanders. His strategic brilliance, particularly in the face of overwhelming odds, has made him a subject of study in military academies around the world. His ability to win battles despite limited resources and manpower is a timeless lesson in the importance of flexibility, innovation, and leadership in warfare. Modern strategists and military historians often study his campaigns, such as the defense of Rome against the Ostrogoths during the Gothic War, 537 to 538, where he used strategic defensive tactics to hold the city against a larger enemy force. His rapid victories in North Africa against the Vandals, demonstrating how swift and decisive action can neutralize a formidable enemy. Belisarius's career is a reminder that great military leaders are those who can adapt to changing circumstances, utilize unconventional tactics, and maintain the loyalty of their troops through charisma and leadership, all of which remain key elements in modern military theory. Belisarius is celebrated for his unwavering loyalty to Emperor Justinian even when treated unjustly. Despite being undermined, accused of corruption, and denied the resources he needed, Belisarius never betrayed the emperor or sought power for himself. His story is a powerful reminder of personal integrity, which is especially relevant in discussions about leadership today. He exemplifies a leader who put duty above personal gain, an ideal that continues to resonate in modern political and business contexts. This idea of loyalty combined with humility is rare among historical figures who wielded such immense power. In today's world, where political and corporate environments often reward ambition and self-interest, Belisarius's example serves as a counterpoint, showing that great leaders do not always need to pursue personal glory to have lasting influence. Belisarius's career highlights the intricate relationship between military success and political power. Throughout his life, he was constrained by the political intrigue of the Byzantine court, most notably Emperor Justinian's suspicion of his popularity. Despite his military successes, Belisarius often faced challenges due to the emperor's reluctance to give him the resources or freedom he needed. This tension between politics and the military is still relevant today, as political leaders and military commanders often operate within competing systems of authority and influence. Belisarius's experience shows the importance of trust between civilian and military leadership, and how political dynamics can impact even the most brilliant of military campaigns. The legend of Belisarius's blinding and fall into poverty, though historically untrue, became an enduring moral tale. In later centuries, he was depicted as a symbol of the fleeting nature of power and the ingratitude of rulers. The story of a loyal servant being abandoned by his masters resonated in many cultures and served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of political ambition and the capriciousness of fortune. While the myth is not historically accurate, it has taken on symbolic significance. The image of Belisarius begging in the streets was immortalized in art and literature, representing the potential downfall of even the greatest of figures. This myth continues to influence modern discussions about leadership, power, and justice, reminding us that even the most successful individuals can face hardship if the political tide turns against them. Belisarius is often cited as an example of ethical leadership. His career offers valuable lessons in managing adversity, exercising patience, and maintaining loyalty, even when facing betrayal or hardship. In an era where leaders are constantly scrutinized for their ethics, his example of putting service above personal ambition continues to be relevant. His humility, even after great victories, stands in contrast to many historical figures who sought personal recognition. Today, his legacy is seen as an example for leaders in politics, business, and the military to prioritize the welfare of the people they serve over their own fame or fortune. Flavius Belisarius's life and legacy endure today as a symbol of military brilliance, personal integrity, and loyalty. His campaigns are studied for their tactical ingenuity, while his loyalty to Justinian serves as a timeless example of leadership under adversity. The myth surrounding his later years adds a layer of moral reflection on the nature of power and fortune, reminding us that even the greatest leaders are subject to the unpredictability of political life. For historians, military leaders, and those interested in ethics, the story of Belisarius offers lessons that are as relevant today as they were in the 6th century.